Welcome to Book Banter, classic and modern reads, where every page sparks a conversation. Here, we dive into timeless classics and today's best-selling novels, bringing thoughtful discussions, reviews, and reflections on the stories that shape us. Whether you're revisiting an old favorite or discovering a new book, we're here to explore the characters, themes, and timeless truths within every page. So, grab your favorite book, settle in, and don't forget to subscribe for more engaging conversations with us. Let's get started.
All right, so John Steinbeck, right. We're going deep on this one, going way beyond Of Mice and Men and all those books everyone had to read in high school.
Definitely.
You brought some really interesting stuff about Steinbeck himself, kind of what made him tick as a writer? You ready to meet the man behind the Grapes of Wrath?
Oh, absolutely. I think you'll find Steinbeck's life was, well, almost as fascinating as his novels. He wasn't just, some writer stuck in an ivory tower.
Mm-hmm.
He was really tuned in to what was going on around him.
See, that's what gets me about him. Born and raised in California, right?
Yeah.
The same landscapes, the same struggles he ends up writing about.
Yeah.
It's all baked right in.
Yeah, totally. You could say that. I mean, he saw firsthand the tough lives of working class people, especially those who work the land. That empathy really fueled his writing, I think.
Which brings us to The Grapes of Wrath, right? This is a guy writing about the Dust Bowl, the Depression, stuff he didn't actually live through himself. So what drew him to that, of all things?
Well, right before The Grapes of Wrath, Steinbeck was knee-deep in journalism. He got this assignment to report on those migrant camps in California, the ones full of families escaping the Dust Bowl.
So he wasn't just theorizing from some distance, he was out there.
Right.
And those articles, they're almost like a warm-up for the emotional punch of the novel.
For sure. And you can tell those camps, seeing families desperate, but also, hanging on. That's where the idea for The Grapes of Wrath starts to take shape.
Makes you wonder, could fiction actually be more powerful than just straight-up reporting when it comes to getting across, real suffering?
That's what Steinbeck wrestled with. He thought fiction could cut through all the noise and really grab those raw emotional truths in a way that, honestly, facts alone sometimes can't.
Okay, so you've got Steinbeck, this guy driven by this huge sense of empathy, this need for justice. He sees the Dust Bowl happening, families desperate for something better, and bam! He drops us right into the middle of it all with the Joads.
The Joads, yeah. Forced off their farm in Oklahoma because of the Dust Bowl. They're like a stand-in for so many families back then.
Totally.
Pack up their stuff, pile into that jalopy, and they head for California, right? That little glimmer of hope in all that darkness.
But as anyone who's read it knows, it's a rough journey. Steinbeck doesn't shy away from it. Death, loss, that feeling of being totally crushed. He puts it all right there on Route 66. And getting to California, let's just say, it's not the promised land, is it?
Not at all. And that's where Steinbeck's criticism of the whole system really comes out, The Joads, everyone else just trying to get by. They get exploited at every turn. Crooked cops, landowners with all the money, paying starvation wages.
Makes you wonder if the American dream was ever real for most people, even back then.
Right. And it forces us to face it. The systems that are supposed to protect people, sometimes they're the very things causing the harm. Steinbeck's not just telling a story here, he's holding up a mirror.
A mirror we're still looking into, honestly. Makes you wonder if anything's really changed.
It does. But even with all that hardship, what gets me is how strong they are.
Yeah.
Especially more Joad.
Joad, the heart of that family, right? Holds them together while everything's falling apart. But it's more than just surviving, isn't it? It's like this quiet strength, this determination.
And she says so much about women throughout history, don't you think? Carrying so much, but their strength is often invisible.
It's true. And Steinbeck takes it even further with the idea of community, right? Survival, really surviving. It's about more than just being tough as an individual.
He's making us think, can we really create change alone? Or do we need each other to break down those oppressive systems? It's just as important a question now as it was during the Dust Bowl.
So to dig into that a bit more, let's talk about some of the characters in The Grapes of Wrath. Because Steinbeck really brings these huge issues to life through their journeys. And who better to start with than Tom Joad, right? The son who comes back home to find everything's gone haywire.
Tom, yeah. He goes through a huge transformation. He starts out just trying to survive, and then all the injustice he sees, it changes him.
He's waking up to a world way bigger and messier than he ever thought possible.
Exactly. And as painful as it is, all that pain awakens something in him. It makes him want to act. to do something.
And then there's Jim Casey. Man, what a character. This ex-preacher struggling with his own faith becomes this kind of spiritual guide, for lack of a better term, for the Joads and everyone else.
I see, yeah. Challenges their assumptions,
Yeah.
Offers wisdom.
Yeah.
But it's really what he does that speaks volumes.
Totally. He's willing to sacrifice himself for the greater good, and it forces us to ask ourselves some tough questions, like, does real change require that level of sacrifice? And are we willing to do that, to give that much for a better world?
Those are tough questions. No easy answers there.
For sure. And to go even deeper, let's unpack some of the symbolism in the Grapes of Wrath, starting with the title itself, which is more than just a catchy phrase, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's layered with meaning.
Steinbeck uses that biblical imagery, that idea from Revelation, right? The grapes of wrath. Because this powerful metaphor for what happens when you let injustice fester.
Like this powder keg ready to explode. And you can't help but wonder if Steinbeck saw those same tensions simmering in America during the Depression.
It's unsettling to think about, right? Makes you wonder if we're any closer to that explosion today. Are we still ignoring the needs of the vulnerable, risking that same kind of wrath?
It's a scary thought, but it's exactly why Steinbeck's work is still important. He wasn't afraid to show us the ugly truth about ourselves, about the systems we build.
And that's the real legacy of the Grapes of Wrath. It's not just a beautifully written book, it's a call to action. It shows us how capable we are of both good and bad.
He's asking us, will we learn from the past, or are we doomed to repeat it?
It's a choice we all have to make.
It's like he's throwing down a challenge with that title,
No.
daring us to see what happens when greed and injustice run wild. You can't help but think about, how much people can take before they push back.
Exactly. And that's what makes his writing so powerful, right? He's not just telling a story about the past, he's drawing those lines to his own time, saying, hey, this is what could happen if we don't pay attention to the people who need it most. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? Is that still true today?
100%. But even with all the darkness, the bleak stuff in the Grapes of Wrath, there's this thread of hope running through it. This belief that even when things are rough, human connection, it can make all the difference.
Yeah, you see it when, even though they've lost almost everything, the Joads still find ways to help others. It's like this testament to, the human spirit,
Right.
That even when things are really bad, we can still be good to each other.
That really stuck with me, too. Especially the ending.
Yeah.
It's not your typical happy ending, is it? It makes you think.
Not at all. Steinbeck, he doesn't give you easy answers, does he? He leaves you with its ambiguity, like what happens next. That last scene with Rose of Sharon giving that starving man sustenance after everything she's been through, it's powerful.
It's heartbreaking, but there's hope there too, right? Even with that much loss, we can still find the strength to care for each other.
Yeah, exactly. And it all comes back to that idea of shared humanity.
Yeah.
The Joads, they've lost everything, their possessions, but they haven't lost their empathy, that willingness to share what little they have left.
Makes you think that maybe, just maybe, it's that ability to connect, to really see each other, that allows us to get through anything.
Powerful stuff, for sure. And it speaks to that idea that real strength, it's not just about being tough on your own, it's about coming together, supporting each other, recognizing that we're all in this together.
And that takes us back to something we talked about before. Steinbeck's belief that fiction, it can be a tool for change. He could have just written some dry, factual account of the Dust Bowl migration, but he chose to tell a story instead.
And it's amazing what he accomplished by doing that.
Yeah.
He gave a voice to people who weren't being heard, made their struggles real for everyone else. By putting the reader right there with the Joads, making you feel what they're feeling, he created this level of empathy that, honestly, it goes beyond time.
He made it personal. He took an event, a moment in history, and made it something we can all connect to.
Exactly. And by telling that story, he made people rethink their ideas about poverty, about success, about what the American dream even meant. He showed everyone those invisible walls that kept people trapped in poverty.
And instead of those walls, he offered, not this naive idea that everything would be okay, but a hope that's rooted in people coming together, in the possibility of actually making things better.
And doesn't that still resonate today? I mean, look around at the world, at all the challenges we face. Steinbeck's work, it can be both inspiring and a call to action.
Because the stuff he was writing about, inequality, exploitation, it's not gone, not by a long shot. If anything, it feels more urgent now than ever. So how do we do it? How do we live out that generosity, that commitment to justice that's all over the Grapes of Wrath?
It's a question worth asking ourselves, isn't it? What choices will we make? How will we respond to injustice when we see it?
Because in the end, I think that's Steinbeck's real legacy. He wasn't just writing about the past, he was writing to us, challenging us to face the hard truths about our own time and to fight for a better world. And as we think about everything we've talked about today, maybe we should ask ourselves, what can we learn from the Joads? From their story? How do we, all of us, hold on to that resilience, that compassion, even when things are tough?
I think it starts with recognizing those struggles Steinbeck wrote about. They're not just history. They're still happening, maybe in different ways, but that same fight for a decent life, that's still going on.
It's like, we gotta open our eyes, really see what's going on around us, and ask, where are those grapes of wrath today? What's bubbling up? And what can we do before it boils over?
Yeah, and Steinbeck, I think he'd say it starts with empathy. Connecting with people who are different from us, listening to their stories, really getting where they're coming from.
Just like he did in his writing. He didn't just tell us about the Joads, he put us right there with them.
Exactly.
And by doing that, he made people rethink their biases, see things from a new perspective.
Yeah, he forced people to see the human cost of how we set up society, those policies that put profits over people. And by making those impacted real, he got people talking about our responsibility to each other, about making a fairer world.
And that's what makes Steinbeck more than just a novelist, you know what I mean? That ability to start conversations that keep going generation after generation.
He wasn't just watching the world go by, he was in it, challenging it, and using his voice to push for change.
And that's something we can all do, in our own way, right? No matter what we do, what we know, we can all be part of building a better, kinder world.
Whether it's what we do, what we say, or even just choosing to see the best in each other, we all have a part to play in making Steinbeck's vision a reality. Empathy, compassion, and that dedication to justice.
It's powerful stuff, and it feels more relevant now than ever, just like when Steinbeck first wrote it. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the grapes of wrath, we hope you'll keep exploring his work, not just as stories, but as a way to see our own world, our place in it.
And to remember that the stories we tell, the ones we choose to believe in, they have the power to shape how we see things, how we act.
This has been amazing, and we hope it's given you some new ways to think about Steinbeck and those timeless themes he explored. Until next time, keep asking the tough questions and keep fighting for a better, more just world for everyone.
Thanks for joining us on Book Banter, Classic and Modern Reads. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you love this conversation, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into both classic literature and today's must-read books. Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let us know what book you'd love to see next. We release new episodes every week, so stay tuned for more. Until next time, happy reading.